The rich and powerful want us to think the economy is a line on a stock market ticker. That's wrong. The economy is powered by us. It's what we create, what we buy, what we need. President Biden has proposed bold public investments in jobs and families, but more is needed. We need housing, healthcare, caregiving, action on the climate crisis, and millions of good-paying jobs. This is our moment to finally unlock prosperity for all of us. For more information, go to prosperus.org. That's prosperus.org.
This is not a job. It's your passion. From the walls you paint to the wood you stain, you put craft into everything you do. And every day, the tools you use create spaces that bring people together. Because when you use the best products, you get results your clients love every time. So, keep creating with Purdy, Valspar, Cabot, and Minwax. Buy online and pick up in store at Lowe's.
Hey, if you'd like to hear this show without ads and plugs interrupting, there's one thing you can do right now to make that happen, and that is become a PW Torch VIP member. You get about a dozen other podcasts throughout the week that I host that are VIP exclusive, and you get the Wade Keller post shows and podcasts during the week with the ads and plugs removed, all on a separate feed exclusively for VIP members. Plus tons of other podcasts that are VIP exclusive, access to our full archives of podcasts dating back to 2004, which includes post pay-per-view roundtables dating back to late 2004. Also access to our full archives, thousands of podcasts, over 1,500 back issues of the Pro Wrestling Torch Weekly newsletter that started it all, ad-free access to our website, and more. Check out full details at pwtorchvipinfo.com. That's pwtorchvipinfo.com to get full details and then jump to our sign-up form. It's mobile-friendly, desktop-friendly. In 2 minutes, you can be a VIP member, show support for us, and we'll give you a lot in return, including a streamlined listening experience on your iPhone or Android device with the ads and plugs removed. Go check it out, pwtorchvipinfo.com.
The rich and powerful want us to think the economy is a line on a stock market ticker. That's wrong. The economy is powered by us. It's what we create, what we buy, what we need. President Biden has proposed bold public investments in jobs and families, but more is needed. We need housing, healthcare, caregiving, action on the climate crisis, and millions of good-paying jobs. This is our moment to finally unlock prosperity for all of us. For more information, go to prosperus.org. That's prosperus.org.
New hot and iced Sunrise Batch Coffee from Dunkin'. A bright and balanced, full-bodied blend brewed so you can get summering from sunrise to sunset. And even after that, because that's when you can show off those string lights you hung in the backyard. Or rehung. Enjoy a medium, hotter iced Sunrise Batch Coffee for $2. America runs on Dunkin'. Price and participation may vary. Limited time offer. Exclusions apply.
Now, PW Torch and Spreaker bring you the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Podcast. It's time for Wade's interview with one of pro wrestling's newsmakers.
All right, we've got a doubleheader for you here on the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Podcast Interview Classic episode for Saturday, March 27th, 2021. First up is longtime promoter Gabe Sapolsky. Here we are the day after ROH had a critically acclaimed ROH pay-per-view. Gabe Sapolsky, one of the early bookers in Ring of Honor, one of the early creative minds in setting the tone for that company. He joined me to talk about how wrestlers have changed in 3 generations of working with indie wrestlers. How are they different than they were when he first started in the early 2000s? Also, he talks about Daniel Bryan and his career being in jeopardy, and he talks about the evolved WWE working relationship. From there, we have a second interview, and this is with the University of West Alabama journalism professor Will Nevin, a longtime PW Torch reader and pro wrestling fan who gave an expert perspective on the legal dynamics and First Amendment issues at play in the Hulk Hogan Gawker lawsuit. This show includes live callers. Actually, both interviews include live callers. So enjoy this doubleheader of interviews that originally aired live on March 24th, 2016. Here we go. Welcome to the PW Torch Livecast. I am Wade Keller, editor, publisher, founder of the Pro Wrestling Torch weekly newsletter, established in 1987. And also pwtorch.com and MMAtorch.com, the websites, and free apps corresponding to those brand names. You can get our free new apps, newly launched this year, totally rebuilt from the ground up. They are free in the Apple and Android app stores. Just search PW Torch and MMA Torch and download them to your phone and keep up on the news and exclusive features every day. It is Interview Thursday here on March 24th, 2016, and we have a doubleheader for you today. Our first guest is going to be Gabe Sapolsky, who is a longtime booker of Ring of Honor, worked in ECW under Paul Heyman, now involved with Evolve, and we'll talk about that, but also a long-time friend, coworker, boss of Daniel Bryan. And when Daniel Bryan retired, our goal was to get Gabe Sapolsky on the program along with Homicide, who had worked with Daniel a lot. It didn't work out, but we took a rain check on that and tried to schedule the time for him to be on again. And this week worked out. And this is coming on a week where Daniel Bryan has canceled his 3 WWE bookings, an MSG tribute show this Friday, a WrestleMania weekend, and also the UK tour. And so we'll be talking to Gabe about that in just a second. Real quick, if you want to find us on demand at any time, you can find us at pwtorchlivecast.com. And if you want to listen to us live, you can find the link to the live show that's on the air also at pwtorchlivecast.com. Our phone number is 646-721-9828. If you have a question or comment for Gabe or want to ask Gabe about Daniel Bryan or Evolve, give us a call, 646-721-9828. And then coming up next, a little bit later in the show, Will Nevin, a PhD, an instructor in journalism and speech who has done a lot of research and work in journalism and the law. And he will be on later to talk about the fallout of the Hulk Hogan Gawker trial. And we're going to dive into this with somebody who knows his stuff and who's going to provide some expert analysis of what happened and what to expect next, and his reaction to the jury decision, the journalism ramifications, big and small, and what comes next in the legal process. So I'm looking forward to learning a lot from Professor Instructor Will Nevin, coming up later from the University of West Alabama. So with no further introduction, let's bring Gabe Sapolsky on to the program. Gabe, welcome to the PW Torch Livecast.
Thanks for having me on, Wade. Sorry for the mishap before. That was my fault. It would have been good timing there. But, I'm glad to be on now, and thanks for everyone out there listening.
I'll take 6% of the blame, Gabe. It's not all your fault.
I'll accept the other 94%.
Okay.
Well, let's throw Radican under the bus. Actually, I'm going to completely throw Radican under the bus instead.
I think he gets 90% of the blame. You get 4, and I get 6. Let's go with that.
All right, fair enough.
You're our guest. Gabe, first of all, in capsule format, because I know your time's somewhat limited today, give people a little background on you, because people see your name, they hear you out there. William Regal out at a Evolve show, and I mean, there's a lot of history. But I think that there are some newer fans who don't really realize how far you go back and what your roots are in wrestling. So, give me a little capsule review since you haven't been on with me. Have you been on the livecast with me before? I think maybe one other time early on.
Yeah, I think I've really been on with Pat and Sean.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for 23 years now. My first show in the locker room was Paul Heyman's first show booking ECW. I stayed with ECW the entire time, all the way to the end. I rose up to become Heyman's personal assistant in ECW and did some everything. Then I started Ring of Honor along with a couple other people, and was there until 2008 when Carrie decided to go in a different direction, handled all the booking and creative and talent relations and all that kind of stuff. And then we started Dragon Gate USA, and out of that arose Evolve. Dragon Gate USA has kind of gone on the wayside for numerous reasons, and now we're focused on Evolve, and it's really become a a special time for us now with Triple H coming to our show in January and taking that picture and shining a lot of spotlight on us, and this relationship developing with WWE. People have seen us prominently mentioned on WWE.com, and we've had Sami Zayn at our shows, and Chad Gable and Jason Jordan, having guests like that, and William Regal was on our events last weekend in New York, and it's really given us a ton of momentum and shined a lot of spotlight on us. And now we're on our way to Dallas for 2 Evolve shows and the WWN Super Show, which is our parent company, and it combines all the different promotions as well as other events. And we're looking at breaking 1,000 people for the first time for Evolve, drawing 1,000 fans. And it's a very exciting time. People can go to morethanmania.com for all the info on that. One thing I'm very proud of is you look at all the names that came out of Ring of Honor and have gone to WWE, and I think I booked pretty much all of them there in the first place. And now what we're seeing is all these people going to WWE from Evolve and WWN. I was just looking at it last night on NXT. You had Johnny Gargano, who's been with us since 2009, and we call him the WWN icon, and he's a big part of our shows in Dallas. And we have Rich Swann, who was a huge part of us for years, about 5 years, and those are guys that grew up with us and other independents. But seeing them both on that show last night was really special, knowing everything they've gone through and for them to be there. So we've really kind of become the place where talent is coming from now. It's funny, we're just catching up on Blu-rays now, and I was watching a show from about a year ago, and everybody except for 2 people on that show are assigned to contracts to various other companies at this point, whether it's NXT, WWE, Lucha Underground, TNA, New Japan, wherever. The guys that come from us get signed places, so I'm very proud of that. And that's pretty much our place in the wrestling business. We provide a very athletic style. We focus a lot more on wrestling, grappling, actual pro wrestling rather than a lot of spots. Not that there's anything to get wrong with that, but we've kind of carved out our niche with that. And we have a very talented talent roster of guys who are going places in this business and making their name right now with Evolve and WWN. So, again, that's morethanmania.com for all the info on the shows coming up in Dallas. And in about a week, we're almost there.
We are, yeah. In that sense, it's good timing to have you on, too. I know people can go to that website and look up the details, but talk about a little more specifically sell people on the idea with all the options that weekend of going to your shows and what you have going on that particular weekend.
Well, we've really built our identity on having good, hard, solid wrestling. Guys like our Evolve champion Timothy Thatcher is really making a name. Former UFC standout Matt Riddle is making a name with us right now. Drew Gulak, Tracy Williams, Chris Hero is absolutely phenomenal now. So we have great pro wrestling. Our shows are real tight. You're not going to be there for 4 or 5 hours. We have about 6-7 matches per show. The WWN Super Show is going to be a little longer by design, and every match means something on our show. There's no throwaway matches. There's no talent that's on the show because they're friends with somebody, or we book too many guys, so we have to do this 4-way or 6-way that no one remembers 5 minutes after it happens, even if it is spectacular. Our shows are all about substance, all about quality, all about the best talent going today, and the talent that's going to be stars on bigger platforms in the future. So this is your chance to get in on the ground floor with them. A special thing we're having, too, is we're honoring Terry Funk at our WWN Super Show, which is on April 2nd. It's head-to-head with the Hall of Fame. So if you can't make it to that, you check out this. And we also have Terry Funk for a special barbecue tailgate right outside AT&T Stadium from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. On WrestleMania Day. So you can come there and eat our food before you have to go and pay those stadium prices for whatever they're serving in there. So we got a lot going on. Again, morethanmania.com. And also, all of our events are broadcast on live iPay-per-view. That's a huge part of our business now, and that's wwnlive.com. Again, that's wwnlive.com.
Awesome. Excellent, Gabe. Speaking of plugs, we're going to take a brief break for 1 minute and come back and talk more about Daniel Bryan and the Evolve WWE relationship. So everybody hold tight right after this.
I won't plug anything more, I promise.
Well, there might be something I want you to plug. All right. Hold tight, everybody. We'll be right back after this.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Shokrian. I was inspired to start MeUndies because I was sick and tired of all the underwear brands out there that didn't feel like they represented me. I wanted to recreate underwear and make it comfortable, fun, and expressive. If MeUndies had one rule, it would be just be yourself. Self-expression is a big part of our company because we want everyone to feel like they can represent themselves. It's all about me. Our original fabric is made out of micromodal. Many have a hard time even just pronouncing it, but it's so soft and buttery you just want to rub it on your face. MeUndies comes out with more prints than any other underwear brand in the world. New prints every week. Some of my favorite prints are Funny Bones, our 420 prints, and even St. Patrick's Day. Best of yet, we offer MeUndies in sizes extra small to 4XL, so there's something for everybody. If you've never tried MeUndies, we want to give you 15% off plus free shipping. Just go to MeUndies.com/JON. That's MeUndies.com/John.
Peacock is streaming your favorite shows, movies, live sports, breaking news, exclusive originals, and every live WWE pay-per-view. It's The Office, Chris Lee Knows Best, and Peacock original shows like Punky Brewster. Peacock, watch for free, upgrade for more. Stream now at PeacockTV.com.
In 2012, NXT transitioned into the developmental system and ultimately the brand you see today. On the Torch VIP podcast, NXT 8 Years Back, we'll be taking a weekly look at this page in NXT's early history.
Join Kelly Wells and me, Tom Stout, from PWT Talks NXT every Saturday as we go 8 years back to the day to track NXT's rising talents and why they did or didn't work out, exclusively for PW Torch VIP members.
I'm Dr. Mike McDermott, Chief Executive Officer of Mary Washington Healthcare. It's been a challenging year, and we are so grateful and appreciative of our nurses. Just like any family does during difficult times, we stuck together. If you are looking for that kind of family atmosphere, consider joining our family. Whether you want to work in one of our 2 hospitals, home health, hospice, or any of our freestanding facilities, I invite you to help us continue to improve the health of our community. Learn more at mwhcjobs.com.
Clorox knows you want your clothes smelling fresh and clean, but sweat happens. That's why we created Clorox fabric sanitizers to freshen up your clothes between washes, pre-treat extra stinky laundry, and make sure every last odor comes out in the wash. Clorox fabric sanitizers take care of all that and eliminate 99% of odor-causing bacteria. Plus, they're bleach-free and safe for all colors and fabrics. When it counts, trust Clorox.
Back live with Gabe Sapolsky of Evolve and WWN, and also a longtime friend of Daniel Bryan. I can call him a friend, can't I? Gabe, that is a proper classification beyond you being his boss.
I wouldn't make it sound like we're best friends or anything, but it's not like we talk that often. But I'm there for him, and he's there. He's been there for me in the past, and I'm sure they would be in the future. So in that regard, we are friends. But it's not like we're in contact. I might talk to him, or text a couple times a year maybe.
Okay, so an ex-friend. No, I'm kidding. I'm just trying.
I wouldn't say an ex-friend. I would just say, we have a bond, and
yeah.
Brian's a pretty private guy, but like I said, like if we exchanged nice messages when he retired and everything, and maybe a very strong acquaintance, I would say. But I would think that friendship is about if you can count on somebody, and he knows that he can count on me, and I know that I can count on him.
Yeah, well put. Did your eyebrow go up a little bit when you heard that he pulled out of the tribute show at MSG Friday and his WrestleMania weekend appearances in the UK tour?
Yeah, I was surprised. I have no idea what's going on. I wish I could shed some light on the matter, but I really have absolutely nothing. I sent him a text and said I'm around, and I haven't heard back, which isn't unusual. Even when Brian worked for me all those years in ROH, he'd return 1 out of 10 texts. So that's not an unusual thing by any means. That's just Brian. So hopefully all is good.
Yeah, yesterday for VIP members on the Wade Keller Hotline, I got into a little bit of what I had heard about him, and I've had it underlined today with some sources, and just that he asked for the time off, and it's for personal/health reasons. And as you said, he's a private guy, and it just sounds like I'm told it's a very, very, very small circle of people who are privy to exactly what's going on with him, and that now that he's out of the spotlight and pulls out of those public events, he kind of takes on, even though he's a very public figure in many ways, he's still on Total Divas,
I feel like let him have his privacy. I mean, he might be going through, as Steve Austin has talked about, when he had to retire earlier than he wanted, a real emotional tough time. Austin said it took him years to deal with that. I'm in no way saying that that's what's going on with Brian now, but just in general, I feel for him. I mean, Gabe, he was one of those people I've said for a while, especially when these health issues came up, that I thought would adjust well to life after wrestling because I think he has interests in other things. And there was a conversation, for what it's worth, on Total Divas with Brie and Brian, and it felt genuine. You got to be skeptical of reality TV production. But Danny Bryan, Brie was saying, hey, you can do good things for the world, and you have other passions, and you can make a difference. And Bryan said, yeah, but nobody's going to care about me. I'm not wrestling anymore, so that power is going to go away. And she goes, no, you're special. I think if you get involved in something, your fans will still follow you. I've sort of pulled back a little bit on my thought, Gabe, that based on some of the interviews he's done and the way he's talked, that I think the adjustment period for him might be a little longer because, and you can speak to this having been around him before there was fame and a lot of money and that kind of thing. He really, really, really immersed himself in wrestling, but he was also, I think other people who have worked with him said he was kind of a quirky, hard to read guy sometimes too.
Well, Brian, I don't think the fame part will be the tough part. Brian was really never looking to be known by millions of people. I mean, that wasn't his goal. He loved wrestling, and now his goal was to be a great professional wrestler, which obviously he was. But saying is the hard part right there, because he's still a young guy and should be in the prime of his career right now. And so that's the part I believe he's going to need some space and time away from to come to terms with, not the fame or the money or any of that kind of stuff. It's just the fact that he lived for wrestling for all those years. I mean, his whole entire life, basically, and now that's something that he's unable to do. Now, I do, knowing Brian and the fact that he did have other interests in life, I do feel that he is going to emerge from this. Once he comes to terms with everything, and once the vision becomes clear to him, I believe he's going to serve a greater purpose somehow. And the thing about when something's taken away, like for instance with me, Ring of Honor was my life. I built it, and it was every aspect of my life. And then overnight it was taken away from me. And then you sit there and it's hard. You have no idea what you're going to do, even what you're going to think about. Like I'm sure he gave a lot of thought to putting together matches. He doesn't have to think about that anymore. And but then what happens is when you're in that gap, when you don't know what's coming next, you either can kind of, once you come to grips with that, it's kind of like the whole universe becomes open to you. Instead of having this narrow focus that you've had for all those years, all of a sudden you have infinite possibilities around you. For me, it took the direction of having a kid, and I had my son a year later, which has been the greatest thing that ever happened to me, and has completely changed my life for the better. And that's something that wouldn't have happened if I wasn't fired from Ring of Honor. So for Brian, the direction's probably not clear right now, and it is hard to come to grips when you think, especially you see what's going on now, and there's Nakamura, and there's, Finn Balor, and there's all these guys that he would have just awesome matches with and be able to create with. So just losing that has to be extremely difficult for a guy who lived to wrestle like Brian did. But knowing him and the fact that he did always have other interests, that he eventually he'll figure it out and come to terms. And I think you said it perfectly, where he just needs that space right now to figure it out for himself. So that's just my personal opinion, knowing what I know about Brian, and knowing what I've gone through, in my life. That's kind of been a similar thing. Not that getting fired has anything to do with having a physical problem, which is a health thing, which is a greater issue, a much greater issue. But that's my read on the situation right now, and hopefully, that it has to do with that mental aspect of it, not the health-wise.
Yeah, and I mean, he had revealed he was having some seizures, and so I mean, what he has disclosed, those are all on the table of things that might be going on, but it kind of gets to a point where it's up to him if he wants to talk about it, and if not, I mean, we can talk about and celebrate his career. He's enough of a public figure when he gets pulled from dates. It's worth talking about a little bit. But I don't think we're at a point, and we'll be getting into this in our next topic, Gabe, after you leave and we bring on our next guest. Where does somebody's personal life, where is that line drawn between a personal life and a professional life? And that's something that, Brian has to adjust to. How How do you think, you had mentioned one of the first sentences in your answer was you're not sure that the lack of fame will bother Brian. Setting aside that he pulled out of these appearances the next few weeks, when he did retire, I suspect it was emotional for you watching it. I think it was emotional for everybody. What did you think, being around Brian professionally as long as you had and knowing him as long as you have, how did you think that he would handle the fact that he had this great moment of closure, but then and then they had those pictures of him crying and kneeling in the back, and then walking out that door and moving on to that next chapter? I mean, you sort of covered in the last answer, but do you think Brian is somebody who would have more difficulty than the average wrestler transitioning away? And, well, go with that first. I don't want to compound the question.
I mean, anyone's going to have difficulty. As far as having more difficulty for a guy who loved performing and wrestling as much as he did, yeah, of course he's going to have a great deal of difficulty. I mean, it comes just to when you spend so much time thinking about something. I'm sure he spent time thinking about his matches and thinking about spots and thinking about how he could improve and thinking about training for wrestling and every aspect of what he had to think about had to do with professional wrestling. That now all of a sudden you don't have to think about any of those things, and just having that gap, that space in your head now that you have to fill. So I do believe, it has to be an extremely difficult thing for him. I mean, it was, I cried watching that ceremony, and it was special to me though. I mean, it's really kind of crazy that he did go out on top of his career. And he did go out with that special moment. I mean, and I knew Brian through the years, and there were several times he almost quit with that while still on the indies to go do other stuff. And to think that he was able to go main event of WrestleMania. I've seen Brian wrestle, I can't even tell you how many times between his time with ROH and FIP and Evolve and Dragon Gate USA. He was with all those promotions with me. And I've seen him wrestle in front of 30 people and put on the most entertaining matches ever. And the last time I ever saw him wrestle in person would be that WrestleMania in New Orleans in front of a sold-out Superdome. So to think that he accomplished that, and then he was able to have such a great moment on the way out was just something special. And the thing about Brian is that he always was a very special person. He was always able to what really proves that to me is he was able to take small things and make them into something, like the small package. The time when ROH was about hitting every finisher in the book and big kickouts, he got a small package over. The I have till 5, I'm going to kick your effing head in. The yes, he took a simple word yes and made it into something. He always had that ability. So I believe that ability is going to translate into something else, and it's just going to be a matter of finding out what it is. But I really do, in my heart, believe that this is a very tough time, and it's always going to be tough for Brian. He's always going to miss wrestling, and we're always going to miss seeing him wrestle. But at the end of the day, he's going to serve a greater purpose for this world than right now. Let's face it, his career would be going on Raw and having 15-minute matches every week. That would be great, and we'd all love him. But most of them, we'd forget about in a week or two, and then he'd go on pay-per-views and have some great matches, and we'd complain that he wasn't being pushed enough because he wasn't having the title all the time. And that's what his wrestling career would be at this point. And once things come clear to him and he's able to get through this time, I really believe that he'll serve a greater purpose for this world. And I believe that what we've seen that's happened, him headlining a WrestleMania and becoming a star in wrestling and having that kind of send-off, will just be the next stepping stone to serving that greater purpose. And it's just a matter now of him having that space, and hopefully, again, I hope with everything I have that's not a health issue, but him having that space to figure out what exactly is going to be next.
How is your schedule looking right now, Gabe? Do you have 5 minutes or so to hang out with us, or do you have to run?
Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm watching my 6-year-old right now, so he's hanging in there. So as long as he's hanging in there, I can hang in there.
I got my 6-year-old in the other room hanging in there too, so I know the feeling. All right. He's building a structure that I'll see when the show's over. All right, well, good. Let's. We got some people who called up, so let's go to them. And if you actually called up wanting to talk about Hogan Gawker, just say so. We'll put you on hold. Move on to another caller. We got a line of people here, but I'm assuming if you're on hold and pushed one, you're eager to talk to Gabe. So.
Peacock fuels your true crime obsession with exclusive new originals like John Wayne Gacy, devil in disguise.
He said to me, clowns can get away with murder.
Dr. Death, the undoctored story.
This guy's dangerous.
And Epstein's shadow, Ghislaine Maxwell.
She inherited Jeffrey Epstein's secrets.
There was this whole other world going on.
Plus the most bingeable crime series, Buried in the Backyard and Snapped. And with the Dateline 24/7 channel that's always on.
Did you want her dead?
You can't not obsess. Sign up now at peacocktv.com.
The rich and powerful want us to think the economy is a line on a stock market ticker. That's wrong. The economy is powered by us. It's what we create, what we buy, what we need. President Biden has proposed bold public investments in jobs and families, but more is needed. We need housing, healthcare, caregiving, action on the climate crisis, and millions of good-paying jobs. This is our moment to finally unlock prosperity for all of us. For more information, go to prosperus.org. That's prosperus.org.
He is I, and I am him, and I'm Matt Taven, the real Ring of Honor World Champion. And you know how I show everyone that I get it? By tuning in to the Podcast of Honor with Tyler and my personal main man, Ryan.
This is Ryan.
And I'm Tyler.
And we are the hosts of the wildly popular PW Torch VIP show, Podcast of Honor.
Our show covers everything Ring of Honor Wrestling, from analysis, show recaps, and wide-ranging interviews with the stars of Ring of Honor.
Download the Podcast of Honor each week and support the best podcast on the PW Torch VIP network.
The rich and powerful want us to think the economy is a line on a stock market ticker. That's wrong. The economy is powered by us. It's what we create, what we buy, what we need. President Biden has proposed bold public investments in jobs and families, but more is needed. We need housing, healthcare, caregiving, action on the climate crisis, and millions of good-paying jobs. This is our moment to finally unlock prosperity for all of us. For more information, go to prosperus.org. That's prosperus.org. The rich and powerful want us to think the economy is a line on a stock market ticker. That's wrong. The economy is powered by us. It's what we create, what we buy, what we need. President Biden has proposed bold public investments in jobs and families, but more is needed. We need housing, healthcare, caregiving, action on the climate crisis, and millions of good-paying jobs. This is our moment to finally unlock prosperity for all of us. For more information, go to prosperus.org. That's prosperus.org.
Let's start with area code 219 first. 219, go ahead and state your name and where you're calling from, unless you're calling about Hogan Gawker, which we'll put you on hold for. 219. All right, 219, going once, going twice. All right, if I am hanging up on you, it's you. All right, let's go to 718 next. 718, go ahead and state your name and where you're calling from.
How you doing? This is Mike from Brooklyn. How you feeling?
Hey, Mike, thanks for calling. What have you got for Gabe today?
How you doing, Wade? Gabe? Pretty much a couple quick questions. First one, Gabe, if you had the opportunity to book, Raw, SmackDown, and plus hold down Evolve, like, would you go for it?
Yeah, if the money was right. I appreciate the question, but I don't know. It'd be tough to do. I'm very happy with my schedule now, and I spend a great deal of time taking care of my kid and watching him, so that's my kind of top priority right now. But yeah, of course, you'd have to listen to it and see how much it's going to pay you.
Right.
Everybody has a price.
Right.
Yeah. All right.
And lastly, of all the guys, that just came in, from AJ to Joe, like, who do Shinsuke, everybody, like, who do you see, as the guy with the, the most potential, or could be like the possible next, breakout star for the company?
Well, right now I'm really high on Timothy Thatcher, who's the Evolve champion. He's got a tremendous amount of presence. He looks like a guy that you wouldn't want to fight. He's an artist in the ring. He's a throwback wrestler, but he takes everything in a new direction, which makes him stand out next to everybody else. There's no one else wrestling like him right now, and I feel very good with Evolve in his hands right now, and him being the face of the WWE family. So that's a name that I think, as time goes by, is going to end up right next to Brian and Joe and AJ and all those other names that you wrestled, or that you just mentioned.
I think some people think you're being a little coy about the WWE Evolve relationship. I kind of defend you, and I knowing how WWE works, I think it is kind of what you say and what it appears to be. It seems like you guys are kind of feeling each other out and taking it one step at a time. What is the level of officialness of the relationship right now with you and WWE?
I mean, that's exactly what it is. Well, exactly what you just said. And I say it all the time. I say we're in our uncharted waters, and we are. We neither of us know what's coming next, but we just kind of build this relationship, you know. It started almost a year ago, about 10 months ago, with some simple phone calls, and they had this vision for NXT, and they're very progressive thinking right now. And looking to kind of preserve the indies, and I have that track record which has been documented, and the talks started coming, and then things just kept moving very, very slowly, and the ideas got put on the table, got taken off the table. We each have needs that we can help each other address, and then like something happened like October. We didn't have the best advances going into our New York shows in October, and they always said to me, hey, if you need some help, ask us. So I never went to them with my hand out looking to just get, you know, a payoff. My thing has always been, you know, let's see what you can do to help us grow, and you know, to give us the tools to help us grow. So we asked for Sami Zayn, you know, hey, Sami Zayn's injured now. Can you send him to our shows? We'll do autographs, and it'll help boost our attendance. They said, okay. So if you had told me 2 weeks before those shows in October that was a possibility, I would have thought you're crazy. Everything came together real quick on that. So then, you know, the same thing happened. The Triple H coming to our show, our Evolve 54 show in Orlando the night before the Royal Rumble, that was, I got a text from William Regal at about 12:30 p.m. that day, and he said, hey, Triple H has some free time in his schedule. He wants to come by your show. Is that okay? And I was like, yeah, of course it was. So if you had told me the night before that Triple H was coming to our show, I would have thought that was crazy. And then other things like us hosting the qualifying matches for the Global Cruiserweight Series, that's obviously been something that's been in development a little bit and still is, because we don't have the dates or the talent set, but it's going to happen. So it is kind of a step-by-step thing. There's no grand master agreement that's been made with everything specified. It's just we're kind of taking steps and getting to know each other and seeing where things go and what needs we have and how they can help and vice versa.
Is WWE the cynical side of what, or the perspective of what's going on, is WWE just wants to own everything. They want to have the whole chain under their control. The more less cynical side is WWE sees great value in having control over the chain. They're basically the same thing. Instead of relying upon a company that they don't have a relationship with, that doesn't do things the way that they prefer them done or have any say-so on how they're done, they want at every level to have a good relationship with up-and-coming talent. And we're seeing that with the NBA, with the developmental league. We're seeing, you know, the NHL's always had a really good, or for a long time has had a good developmental system. The NFL basically has college football, so that takes care of itself. What are the kind of the pros and cons, and what were maybe some concerns that you might have had at different stages of your promoting and booking career of WWE getting so involved now beyond the wrestlers who appear on Raw and SmackDown, in terms of now NXT signing a lot of talent that would otherwise be on the indie scene, making money for indie promoters and drawing money, and now even at the Evolve level, having a working relationship with young guys who are future NXT guys?
Well, I don't really have any concerns because the old rules to me have been thrown out. I mean, Triple H and Regal and the whole crew there have a different mindset right now, and it's very progressive and very cutting edge. I mean, that's what we're seeing with NXT right now. I've never been afraid of losing talent because I lost an entire talent roster and promotion when I was fired with Ring of Honor. I lost Brian, I've lost Joe, I've lost all the TNA talent at one point. I've lost Punk. I've lost every piece of talent, and that's what's going to happen on the indie level, and you hope so, because you want to see guys move on and make money, and it's up to the booker and the promoter to come up with new talent and develop that talent and market them, and that also keeps your promotion fresh. So the whole losing talent aspect, it doesn't faze me one bit. And to me, it's an important part of the whole process, and not only giving spots for new talent to be able to make names for themselves, but keeping the promotion fresh. And then you develop a relationship with these guys, and you don't want to see them making indie money for their whole lives. You want to see them go on and become millionaires. You know, it's great when you see a guy. You know, I see a guy like Luke Harper. I know what he went through working for us. Apollo Crews is another one. Callisto was with us at Samurai Del Sol for years, and I know, you know, what they went through to get there, and now that they're being able to take care of their families for the rest of their lives. I mean, you go to WWE and you change your family's fortunes for generations. So I've never been fazed by that. And to me, a lot of the old rules, as far as the controlling and all that kind of stuff, it's all been thrown out. We're on totally new ground here, and that's like the most exciting thing is I really don't know what the next phone call or the next email is going to bring, and it's going to be exciting for the fans to watch. This qualifying match thing involved is going to be super exciting because there's no telling what's going to happen with it. And one thing I will also credit the WWE folks with is that they haven't come to us and said, hey, we need you to change or we need you to conform. They've come to us and have literally said, like, keep doing what you're doing. We don't want to change you. We want you to keep doing what you're doing. And we're not looking to come in and switch everything up or change everything around. So that's been that's been a totally 180 from something that might have happened a few years ago. So again, you know, we are all on this roller coaster together right now, and there's no telling what's coming next. So it's a very exciting time.
Is there anything that you're doing differently right now than you would be doing if WWE had never picked up the phone and there was no relationship there? Do you find yourself maybe looking at talent that you put on your shows through the lens of who might WWE be more interested in, rather than who would you be interested in in a different category as promoting the vision you have for Evolve?
No, I'm doing everything exactly the way I would. I mean, you know, if first of all, they don't want us to change, which is great. I've found a creative place, what I'm very happy with. And we're doing everything exactly as we would. You know, if they want to drop us tomorrow for this relationship, I've been doing this for a long time anyways. So it's with or without them. So, you know, it's good. So no, everything's what you're seeing right now is exactly what you would see with Evolve or WWN if there wasn't any kind of WWE relationship on the board. And one thing I will say is that, you know, they came to our show and they have said that our shows are the most like, you know, what they like from the indies, you know. So that's just something where it all kind of came together on the timing of it, of the kind of style of wrestling that we kind of started building around about a year and a half ago, and the kind of style of wrestling that they're looking for right now.
Things I thought could never happen. Me in a punk band?
What? We Are Lady Parts, a new original comedy streaming only on Peacock.
A confused mix of hash anthems and sour girl power. Syra, vocals. Aisha, drummer. Bisma, bassist. Mumtaz, band manager. And me, Amina, lead guitar.
You were really good until you puked all over the front row. Ew.
We Are Lady Parts. All episodes streaming now. Only on Peacock.
The rich and powerful want us to think the economy is a line on a stock market ticker. That's wrong. The economy is powered by us. It's what we create, what we buy, what we need. President Biden has proposed bold public investments in jobs and families, but more is needed. We need housing, healthcare, caregiving, action on the climate crisis, and millions of good-paying jobs. This is our moment to finally unlock prosperity for all of us. For more information, go to prosperus.org. That's prosperus.org.
Are you a fan of New Japan Pro Wrestling? Then join the New Japan Pride podcast starring
Bethany Rubel
and Javier Machado.
With an eye for the action.
And an eye for the story. We'll keep you abreast of all New Japan shows both in Japan
and also covering their American expansion with New Japan Strong.
And I'll watch all the Yano matches so Bethany doesn't have to.
And I'll watch all of the Ibushi matches.
Wait a minute. I didn't script that.
Listen to our weekly podcast exclusively with the PW Torch VIP membership. Become a member at pwtorch.com/govip.
The rich and powerful want us to think the economy is a line on a stock market ticker. That's wrong. The economy is powered by us. It's what we create, what we buy, what we need. President Biden has proposed bold public investments in jobs and families, but more is needed. We need housing, healthcare, caregiving, action on the climate crisis, and millions of good-paying jobs. This is our moment to finally unlock prosperity for all of us. For more information, go to prosperus.org. That's prosperus.org.
New hot and iced Sunrise Batch Coffee from Dunkin'. A bright and balanced, full-bodied blend brewed so you can get summering from sunrise to sunset. And even after that, because that's when you can show off those string lights you hung in the backyard. Or rehung. Enjoy a medium, hot or iced Sunrise Batch Coffee for $2. America runs on Dunkin'. Price and participation may vary. Limited time offer. Exclusions apply.
And does the change in style philosophically, or the approach that you're taking, have? I remember talking to you right after you're part of launching ROH, and one of my first questions to you, I remember, was like, "Oh, you're going to book ECW Arena," and you were kind of like, no, that's not our goal, and our goal is, and you can correct my memory too, but you were like, we're not trying to be the next ECW and pick up where they left off. We want to create an alternative or a different version, a new vision for wrestling, because ECW, not that it played itself out, but you wanted to have your own identity for what you were doing. And so it's not unusual for that to happen with you. It's happened in the past. That said, is what you described earlier about a more wrestling-based, less multi-person spot fest type approach, is that influenced somewhat by the injuries, head injuries, especially in the concussion issue, or is it maybe more going back to the ECW to ROH transition, where you just felt like that's the next logical kind of chapter, or that's the niche that we can fill to be different than what maybe the last dozen years of indie wrestling has provided?
That might be the best question I've ever been asked. Ever.
Well, thank you.
Very, very insightful, and I would say some of each. The one thing that you'll see on our shows is that we are careful. And there have been a lot of lessons learned from all the concussion stuff, especially what you see with Brian now. And it's something that's going to be important for the future of the business too, because Brian is just a start. My goal is for guys to come through us and make money, not for guys to end their career with us. And if it's going to get to the point soon where if you have multiple concussions and WWE's looking to hire you and they test you and these new tests come back showing, there's a concussion problem or a neck problem, they're not going to hire you. So, and that's just speaking selfishly from a dollar point of view. Never mind the fact that we want to see everyone be physically better as they get older too. And if you ignore the stuff that we know now, you're just being completely ignorant, and you're also being selfish. And what's it for? It's for pretty much cheap pops. I think a lot of the stuff that's really dangerous now doesn't have a lot of substance behind it. I think it's really for cheap pops at the moment. And that might be controversial for me to say, but I really believe that.
Yeah.
So a lot of what we do is with the stuff that we're educated about in mind, and being safer for the wrestlers going into the future, and making sure that they don't have those problems when hopefully they get hired. So that is a big part of it. And then the other part that you said was, what happened was 3 guys came along who really started doing this style of wrestling, which was Drew Gulak, Timothy Thatcher, and Biff Busick, who was recently signed a few months ago by WWE. And I was just watching, and I was like, wow, this is what these guys are doing, around the indies is just so fresh now. It's like a throwback style, but it's been so long since it's been done that it's just completely new and fresh, and they're all taking it in new and innovative directions. And it got me excited to watch. I enjoyed watching it as a fan. And one thing I've always found is when I've enjoyed watching something as a fan, other people, namely our audience, usually enjoy watching it as a fan. And at the same time, I did get tired of okay, you have these 4-ways or these 6-ways, and they're exciting, and there are a lot of pops, a lot of action, but they never mean anything, and everyone always forgets about them by the end of the night. And just a lot of the spot. We kind of like, with the Dragon Gate guys, they're great at psychology, and they do some amazing stuff, but they were also so fast and so skilled and so awesome and so athletic that when the time came to move on from them, and they moved on from us, that there was nowhere to go with that style. You know, they had kind of reached the pinnacle of it. So as far as like me just kind of growing tired of it, and also as far as the wrestling safety goes, and then seeing these new guys coming up and really doing this style, making me excited about it, all those things kind of combined. And moving forward too, the one thing you said is you know, I do always look to move forward. You always have to evolve in this business. And a big influence, this might sound weird, is my favorite band is Neurosis, who's been around for 30 years, and they came out with an album, and they completely stripped down everything. They used to do this, like, screen show and all this stuff, and they dumped that, and their album was real basic and just raw. And like I said, hey, you know, they're kind of stripping down. They kind of had the subconscious thing about, let's just get basic. Let's go back to everything being substance. Let's you know, dump some of the flash and go for pure substance now with this new direction and new style. And that also accomplishes being safer at the same time and preparing these guys for the future. So there's all those things kind of coming together.
That's great. That's really interesting. I took a couple notes while you were answering it, and a couple follow-ups here, and then we'll let you go, Gabe, and I'll move on to our guest journalism professor talking about the Hogan Gawker case. One thing I jotted down when we were talking is super kicks and DDTs. Steve Austin has lamented how the DDT has become kind of a mid-match transition move that used to be occupied by a body slam or a hip toss. And somebody just, I think after Raw this week on Twitter or email had said, everybody's doing super kicks now. That used to be a finisher. You know, Gentleman Chris Adams, I think was the first guy I remember doing that as a finisher. Shawn Michaels, Sweet Chin Music, on and on. Now it's sort of a mid-match transition. And so there comes a point, and even with the hardcore style, Gabe, we saw WWE and other promotions too, TNA, lagging, I think, far behind in realizing this. People have just become numb to weapons and objects being used in matches, and it's not so much hitting the reset button, although I guess that's kind of part of it, but it's trying to make the most of what you do and not overdo what you do to get a reaction. And that leads to my actual question here, which is, do you feel that fans dictate the style that you choose to go in? In other words, the crowd stops reacting to things as much as they used to, so you have to figure out how to react to that? Or do you think that you decide kind of ahead of that what the next direction is, and then you kind of have to recondition or re-educate them and steer them in a new direction, and there might be a struggle during that transition?
Well, I think you have to go with what the talent that you have is. You can't put, round pegs in the square holes or whatever. You need, if for instance, I saw we had Gulick, Busick, and Thatcher were coming up, and we were able to build around them, and they do that style. Now Zack Sabre Jr., you know, if like the Young Bucks, when everyone thinks super kicks, I think Young Bucks, and the Young Bucks are obviously one of the top acts in all of wrestling right now, extremely popular with the fans. Everything they do is magic. So I can't criticize that. That's what works for them. And if I had the Young Bucks to build around, maybe I'd go in that direction, you know, even if I do enjoy watching the kind of Timothy Thatcher stuff more. It's all personal taste when it comes to that, and you can't really criticize one thing over the other. It's like saying, oh, you like classical music? That sucks. I don't like it. I like hip-hop, you know? It's personal taste. It's all different. It's all variety, and it's all what makes professional wrestling great. Now, if you're going to try something new, you do have to expect a learning curve. And that's where you have to have patience, and that's where you have to really believe in what you're presenting. I mean, we're still having a learning curve with the kind of style of wrestling we're doing, where people are used to maybe 100 false finishes in every match, and we're not quite doing it. So we're going through that learning curve where they're going to be more, where we're going to try to develop that, hey, this submission could end it, or this knockout could end it right away. And there is a bit of you have to have patience with it, and maybe people might not love it right off the bat, but it's something you can grow and educate to them. And the bottom line is, if it's something that you enjoy and you don't feel forced, you know, I don't feel like we're forcing it down people's throats. I feel like it is something they're enjoying by the fact we did just draw our biggest crowds in Queens and Brooklyn, which have been regular stock for us for a while. We drew our biggest crowds here last weekend. So it is catching on, and the show of being all substances is catching on. And, we're heading towards 1,000 people for the first time in Dallas next week. So it's kind of a combination of everything. You got to go with what the talent you have is, and I believe you have to go in what you believe in, and this is a style I believe in, but at the same time you do have to have patience with it. If it doesn't get over in one show, you can't just abandon ship. You have to commit to it.
Do you think there's a
Does that answer the question?
It did, yeah.
Streaming only on Peacock.
John Wayne Gacy killed 32.
Straight from the killer's mouth.
They want you to believe that I alone committed these murders.
The new gripping 6-part documentary series, John Wayne Gacy, Devil in Disguise. All episodes streaming now, only on Peacock.
At Tillamook, our cheesemakers don't just make cheese, they speak cheese. Our ice cream scientists, they live to brainstorm new flavors.
I dub thee malted cookie almond fudge.
Even our customer service team, there's nothing they'd rather talk about than whatever you'd like to talk about.
Tillamook, this is Jazz speaking.
That's because at Tillamook, it's not so much a job as it is a way of life. This is Tillamook. Do right by every bite. Find out more at tillamook.com.
Wrestling fans, are you that person that works in a pro wrestling reference to every aspect of your life? Well, we're those kind of people too, but we do so with mixed martial arts. I'm Robert Vallejos, host of MMA Talk for Pro Wrestling Fans, every Monday on PW Torch's Daily Cast lineup. Not only do we cover every UFC and Bellator event, we provide context that only a wrestling fan would really understand. I mean, we're the type of people that if you ask us about how much of a mess the middleweight title situation is, we're likely to reference WCW in the early 90s. Think of us as a podcast for casual MMA fans done by hardcore wrestling nerds. And you can find us by searching PW Torch in Apple Podcasts or any popular podcast app. And we're always available on demand at pwtorchdailycast.com, where you can check out the entire lineup of the PW Torch Daily Casts.
The rich and powerful want us to think the economy is a line on a stock market ticker. That's wrong. The economy is powered by us. It's what we create, what we buy, what we need. President Biden has proposed bold public investments in jobs and families, but more is needed. We need housing, healthcare, caregiving, action on the climate crisis, and millions of good-paying jobs. This is our moment to finally unlock prosperity for all of us. For more information, go to prosperus.org. That's prosperus.org.
At Tillamook, our cheesemakers don't just make cheese, they speak cheese. Our ice cream scientists, they live to brainstorm new flavors.
I dub thee malted cookie almond fudge.
Even our customer service team, there's nothing they'd rather talk about than whatever you'd like to talk about.
Tillamook, this is Jazz speaking.
That's because at Tillamook, it's not so much a job as it is a way of life. This is Tillamook. Do right by every bite. Find out more at tillamook.com.
I'm eager to ask this follow-up, too, because, it's kind of a two-parter. One, I want to know what you think of how wrestlers perceive receiving a "This is awesome" chant, and how much they see that as a validation that what they're doing is correct, and do you agree that a "This is awesome" chant is usually a good thing?
I mean, it is a good thing. If a crowd thinks something is awesome and they're cheering for it, then that's not a bad thing to me. At the same time, if it's the kind of thing where, all right, a guy can jump off a balcony who has no skill and get a "This is awesome" chant, that has negative effects. I believe that you need to have a talent roster that has confidence in what they're doing and knows that you have faith in what they're doing. So that's the important thing is a lot of these, a lot of upcoming guys, especially guys looking to make their name, think, all right, I got a "This is awesome" chant, I'm going to get booked again. Or there might be some promoters or bookers out there that a guy doesn't get that kind of chance and they don't, and they aren't booked again. So the talent has to know that you have faith in exactly what they're doing and you're willing to give it time and you're willing to let it develop. And if they know that you have that support, then I think that they'll be more likely to stick with it rather than go for like that immediate pop.
And I ask that too in the context of I am a proponent, just kind of my leaning wrestling philosophy is you should have a crowd cheering the babyface making a comeback, booing a heel cheating, that they should be into the match emotionally in terms of cheering for somebody to win or lose a vast majority of the time. It will vary by promotion. It'll vary by talent roster and the moment in time you are in the chapters of the story you're telling as a wrestling promotion with that talent. But in general, I think if a crowd is chanting this is awesome and you have a heel and a babyface at the climax of a match, I think something went wrong. Because I think the crowd should be wrapped up in, I want this guy to win, I want my favorite to win, not stepping back in some meta way, evaluating it like a movie critic. When I go to a movie, I don't want to be thinking about what my movie review is going to be and thinking about the great directing and great special effects. I want to be immersed in that world where I'm on an emotional roller coaster ride with the hero and the villain.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like me, especially being an older school guy, wants that emotional where you just have people dying for the babyface to win or, you know, the heel to lose or whatever. But I still don't disparage anything else. You know, it depends. As long as they're reacting. As I always say this, I don't care if they're dead silent or if they're reacting. The only bad noise to me in wrestling is when they're sitting there and you hear that murmur in the crowd, because that means they're all bored and they're all talking to each other, you know, looking at or you look into a crowd and they're all looking at the phone. That's the only negative thing to me. Everything else depends on what you're going for with your promotion, what you've built up, and if the people are having a good time. And the bottom line at the end of the night, if the people feel like they got their money's worth and they're coming back to your show, that's really what matters the most, no matter if they're chanting this is awesome or really emotionally invested. But of course, I want to see the people emotionally invested.
My final question for you is, how are wrestlers different in 2016 who are of a similar age and place in wrestling, attitude-wise, what they bring to the table in terms of the wrestling that they watched, and 2006 and 1996?
They're just straight up nerds now, no doubt about it. And I make fun of everybody. I shouldn't say that. But,
nerd is a term of endearment now. It's not in the 1980s anymore. That's a term of endearment.
Yeah, no, it is. You know what's funny is I watched Revenge of the Nerds for the first time the other week, and it really is a messed up movie. I mean, the nerds, like, well, that's a whole nother. The nerds are really not baby faces at all, and they're presented bad. Yes. But anyway, that's another subject. We can analyze Revenge of the Nerds sometime later.
Yes.
But they don't, you know, back in the day in ECW. I mean, the guys today are like nothing like back in the day in ECW. But they take their craft very seriously. They take their physical conditioning extremely seriously. I mean, this is a crew that knows how to diet and knows workout routines and how to be most effective with their workout routines. These are guys that, you know, they go back to the hotel room, they play video games, they talk about their matches, they think of cool spots to do, and they spend their time kind of in that direction. But they're very dedicated. They're always looking to create. It's a very creative bunch. They're always looking to innovate. They're always thinking of new places they can take things. And it's just they're really just immersed in their wrestling now. And not that they weren't before, but before you'd have a lot more partying and chasing women and all that kind of stuff back in '96 compared to now. So you know, it's I would say it's a very solid crew, and also for the most part it's smaller guys. I don't know how that came about, but that's how it is now. And I would say overall it's a much more athletic group as well.
Are they more students of history, or are they students of a particular slice of their, you know, childhood or teen years?
It's more their history. I mean, I would like them. I think they could benefit from going back and watching a lot more stuff from the 80s. Yeah. I believe a lot of that stuff has been lost. These are guys whose earliest memories are the late 90s and the boom period, and that's also what's kind of been beaten into them by all the DVDs and network specials and all that kind of stuff. Is, you know, now is the best time. So that's been the big influence. They're guys that really probably could be more influenced by watching the 70s and the 80s stuff, just for watching it for facial expressions and selling and little psychology things with the crowd. I wish that they would watch more of that. But they're guys who, I mean, there's guys now who are influenced by Jack Evans, which is insane to me because I still think of Jack Evans as a kid.
Yep.
You know, so it's guys who and there's guys who are influenced by, the mid 2000s indie boom. So we're getting into that kind of crowd. So that's what they watch more, and I've been influenced by more than the older school kind of stuff. Which is I have obviously some responsibility there because I was there during the mid 80s or the mid 2000s wrestling boom. So that's why I'm kind of happy with where we're going now and trying to go back or take old school stuff and kind of modernize it and kind of put that over.
Yeah, you and I are about the same age, and there comes that point when other people's nostalgia is stuff that you feel like was just not that long ago and way deep into your being a fan and a student of the game. It's like when people start getting like look at it as the post Monday night, when the Monday Night War was nostalgia, that was jarring. But now it's like post-Monday Night Wars nostalgia, and Monday Night Wars like this ancient history that even some current wrestlers weren't born during, or were born during it. It's just, it's pretty, it just comes with aging, but yeah, absolutely. Gabe, you have time for a quick call before we wrap up, or do you got to run?
Yep, sure.
Okay, we have 813 is on hold for a while. Let's go to that so I don't monopolize too much here. We're about to go to another commercial break. Why are you listening to commercial breaks? Why deal with these interruptions when you can become a VIP member, support the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Podcast, Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Shows, the PW Torch Daily Casts, and the entire team and everything that we do, and get a ton in return for your membership by becoming a VIP member. Go to pwtorchvipinfo.com for full details. 30-plus years of archives of podcasts, retro radio shows, over 1,600 back issues of the Pro Wrestling Torch Weekly newsletter, a fascinating march through our coverage of wrestling history, and so much more, including ad-free versions of the Wade Keller Podcast, Wade Keller Post Shows, and PW Torch Daily Casts, and several exclusive VIP podcasts just about every day, dozens of VIP exclusive podcasts that you're not hearing because you're not a VIP member. So go VIP, pwtorchvipinfo.com. Subscribe to our VIP podcast feed and listen in a streamlined way with no interruptions to all of our podcasts. Again, that's pwtorchvipinfo.com.
The rich and powerful want us to think the economy is a line on a stock market ticker. That's wrong. The economy is powered by us. It's what we create, what we buy, what we need. President Biden has proposed bold public investments in jobs and families, but more is needed. We need housing, healthcare, caregiving, action on the climate crisis, and millions of good-paying jobs. This is our moment to finally unlock prosperity for all of us. For more information, go to prosperus.org. That's prosperus.org. The rich and powerful want us to think the economy is a line on a stock market ticker. That's wrong. The economy is powered by us. It's what we create, what we buy, what we need. President Biden has proposed bold public investments in jobs and families, but more is needed. We need housing, healthcare, caregiving, action on the climate crisis, and millions of good-paying jobs. This is our moment to finally unlock prosperity for all of us. For more information, go to prosperus.org. That's prosperus.org.
Searching for more great pro wrestling talk? Then join me, Jason Powell, host of the free weekly Pro Wrestling Boom podcast. Each week, you'll hear the latest news and analysis from me and my team at ProWrestling.net, along with other pro wrestling media members. Plus, the Pro Wrestling Boom podcast features long-form interviews with notable names in the pro wrestling industry. Subscribe in iTunes, Stitcher, Downcast, and all your favorite secondary apps, or visit us directly at pwboom.com. Once again, that's pwboom.com.
813, go ahead and state your name and where you're calling from and confirm you're calling for Gabe. 813. 813. All right, well, they're live. Well, fortunately, we got 952 showed up in the meantime. So let's go to 952. 952, please state your name and where you're calling from.
This is Brian. I'm calling from Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Hey, Brian, what have you got for Gabe today?
My big question is in regards to, with all this work in the independent scene, I think of people like Dean Ambrose on Monday Night Raw trying to take on Brock Lesnar in a 2-on-1 match, and that's a common theme I see in WWE is the big stars like Brock Lesnar, namely, or The Rock, are in a lot of these matchups where they can take on multiple indie wrestlers who are stars. Like even a Daniel Bryan, I don't think would be given any kind of I don't even know what they put it up behind Daniel Bryan as a company to say you can take on Brock Lesnar one-on-one, and the fan base will not only buy into it, but will enjoy it and pay money to watch that. Every time I see that, it disheartens me to hear all these stories of these indie guys trying to build themselves up and trying to make something great, but when you get to the big leagues, you're just constantly undermined, and it never really paid off. I haven't seen anyone in the indies who's gotten that big push on the level of, say, a Brock Lesnar.
Thanks, Brian. What do you say, Gabe?
Yeah, I mean, they're putting a great deal of promo and TV time into Dean Ambrose. So that shows that they're behind him, that they support him. Maybe it's not the way that that fan wants, and I do respect his opinion greatly. But the bottom line is that, and this is what people should always say to themselves, if they're giving people TV time and promo time, and especially significant match time, they like them and they're pushing them. If they're getting squashed and they're not on TV, then they don't like them. It's pretty clear who WWE likes and doesn't like, but if you go by that rule.
All right, very good.
Can I add an addendum to that?
Oh, go ahead, Brian. Sure. Yeah, follow up.
So, like, for these guys, most of these young and up-and-comers were raised on the Monday Night War, so they've drinking the WWE modern wrestling Kool-Aid of, the boom of the late 90s, and I watch films that are 40 or 50 years old because I enjoy them as an artist. I get something more out of them than contemporary remakes or modern works. I just do personally. So I really I value your idea of them watching older wrestling than what's being given to them the most easily via the network or whatever. But I don't even know how to fully wrap that question around. I hear what you're saying with these wrestlers, but what about the modern fan, like my cousins who are youngsters? Now, I might disagree with it, but what about an 8-year-old who's really into Dean Ambrose and sees this big bad Brock Lesnar never get his comeuppance? He's treated as this big bad dragon who goes away for months, but his guy, Dean Ambrose, week in and week out is on that show busting his chops, trying to prove himself, and every time he gets to the brass ring, it's pulled back away from him. Further he must reach to get it. While someone like a Brock Lesnar is kind of just given that momentum without question.
All right, Brian, thanks.
I mean, it depends how this Dean Ambrose story ends. So the story hasn't been told yet, so we're all watching it. As far as Brock Lesnar goes, I mean, I was at the Royal Rumble, and it was obvious that he was the biggest star in the company.
Yeah.
So by the crowd reaction. So what you're talking about right there is a guy who has the best name value and is seen by the fans as the biggest stars, as was clear by the reaction that night. So he should be treated the way he is because he is a big deal. But with a guy like Ambrose, I understand what you're saying as far as the 8-year-old. It might be frustrating seeing, he hasn't quite gotten what he deserves yet, but he is featured on TV every week, which is a big thing, and the story is being told. So let's see how it ends.
Gabe, thank you so much for your time, your generous time today, and good conversation on a wide array of topics. I really enjoyed it.
I appreciate it, Wade. It was a lot of fun. It was a really great interview. It's great interviews are few and far between, so I appreciate it. And I'll say it one more time, morethanmania.com for all our stuff in Dallas, wwnlive.com. You can go check out some Evolve right now, right there.
Say the website slower this time so people can...
All right, morethanmania.com.
Yep.
That's all our info on our shows on Dallas, and wwnlive.com. That's our iPay-per-view channel. Every single one of our shows, Dragon Gate USA, Evolve, WWN, Shine, everything else is on wwnlive.com to watch anytime.
Gabe, thanks so much, and you can follow Gabe at BookItGabe, right?
Yep, at BookItGabe on Twitter.
And we just had a little we're doing an interview live and interacting on Twitter at the same time, so it's very 2016. Thanks, Gabe. Thanks,
cool.
Gabe.
Thanks, Wade. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, that's Gabe Sapolsky.
Don't make it so long next time. I mean, don't have so much time in between interviews next time. I'm more than happy to come on.
I thought you were just complaining. Don't make it so long next time.
No,
I got you.
So long in between interviews.
That's the deal.
I'll talk to you again.
That's the deal. Thanks, Gabe.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, so we're not done yet. We've got our law journalism expert coming up to talk about the Hulk Hogan Gawker trial coming up next. And so if you're interested in talking about Hulk Hogan and the Gawker saga, I encourage you to get on the phone lines right now, and we will take calls on that subject too. I'm going to delve into the topic. First of all, though, I wanted to wait till we were done with Gabe before doing the sponsorship message, but Loot Crate is a new sponsor of the PW. Definitely good content every single day to check out. at MMAtorch.com. That does it for me for today. Tomorrow, Bruce Mitchell and Travis Bryant. Saturday, Jim Valley with Rhonda Shear from USA Network's Up All Night. I think it's Up All Night, right? And a contributor to WWE television doing interviews. Jim Valley, very excited about this interview, as is Rhonda. Check that out Saturday morning. The time slot is 8:30 Pacific time, 11:30 Eastern, every Saturday morning, the newest addition to the PW Torch livecast lineup. That does it for me for today. Until next time, Wade Keller thanking all of you for your support and signing off. Thank you for listening to the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show. Did you know that through Patreon, you can get this show with the ads and plugs removed for just $4.99 a month and enjoy our podcasts on whatever podcast app you're using or directly through the Patreon app? Check out full details at patreon.com/PWTorchVIP. That's patreon.com/PWTorchVIP. Wipe away the ads to the Wade Keller podcast, post shows, and PW Torch daily casts. That's 14 pro wrestling podcasts per week with the ads and plugs removed for just $4.99 per month. Support us and enjoy a streamlined listening experience.
Welcome to the PW Torch livecast. I am Wade Keller, editor, publisher, founder of the Pro Wrestling Torch weekly newsletter, established in 1987. And also pwtorch.com and MMAtorch.com, the websites, and free apps corresponding to those brand names. You can get our free new apps, newly launched this year, totally rebuilt from the ground up. They are free in the Apple and Android app stores. Just search PW Torch and MMA Torch and download them to your phone and keep up on the news and exclusive features every day. It is Interview Thursday here on March 24th, 2016.
All right, we're starting with our guest, Will Nevin from the University of East Alabama. I hope I got that right because I don't have his bio right in front of me.
West.
Okay, I got it the opposite, so that's just about as wrong as you can get. But I got the state right, so I'll pride myself. Journalism is about getting things about half right, isn't that right, Will?
Absolutely.
Okay, good, because then I'm batting pretty well. Thanks for taking time to be on the show today. I'm excited to talk about this with you. You are an instructor in journalism and speech at the University of West Alabama. You have looked into the Florida State Court complaint on Hogan versus Gawker. And, I mean, there's so many directions we can go with this, but I'm excited to talk to somebody who knows what they're talking about and has a background both in journalism and also understanding the legal ramifications of this. A lot of ways to start off here, but, Will, I'll start with asking you, do you think Hulk Hogan is going to see very much of the $140+ million judgment?
Well, there are so many court procedures to come, court decisions to come, because this is in some ways just the beginning. The trial is just a couple of weeks, but the appellate process, conceivably, this could get to the United States Supreme Court, and if it does so, I mean, we're looking at it could be, say, 5 years before a final decision comes in this case. And then, and only if, the Supreme Court upholds the decision, and this is a low probability. I mean, not a lot of cases get up there. Only then is Hogan going to start to see any of that money. So I will stake my reputation as a gentleman and a scholar that he is not going to see $140 million. That's just an absurd amount of money that is going to get reduced. And we'll talk about any number of reasons why some of his claims might be thrown out or why the jury verdict might be reduced on appeal. But maybe one day, possibly, yes, he could see some money, but it is not going to be that full verdict.
And when you say and I've heard this a lot, it's an outlandish amount, explain kind of as a foundation why this particular case was in front of a jury and why a lot of people are kind of scoffing at how a jury looks at this compared to how the appellate judge might, and how legal scholars and First Amendment people who are really know a lot about the First Amendment, how they look at this case so differently than jurors.
Sure. it's in some way the difference between a trial court and appellate court. Trial courts are very much concerned with the facts. And the great thing about a jury system is that it is average, ordinary individuals deciding questions of liability and guilt and innocence. And that's part of a democracy. We want to have average, ordinary citizens in there. They make decisions based on not a great understanding of the law, but they make decisions based on, what they've been told, in essence, the performances of the opposing counsel, and then what they think is right in the end. And I believe wholeheartedly that those jurors decided what they thought was right. The law is much colder. The law looks at, well, how do we as a society want to treat these issues? How do we want to resolve these things with some amount of consistency? Juries, I mean, who knows how one jury is good? If we sat down another jury in Florida to hear the same case, maybe they come out the same way, maybe they don't. The idea with the law is that we evolve it over time in very consistent, repeatable, predictable ways. And that's the way an appellate court is going to look at this. An appellate court is not necessarily going to look at, well, do we feel bad for Gawker? Do we feel bad for Hulk Hogan? No, an appellate court is going to look at this, okay, how do we want cases in the future to be decided? How do we want judges to instruct juries on the law in the future? So I think that's where the perspective is going to be different in this next stage of the process.
And so why hold this trial in front of a jury if there's such a different perspective from an appellate court standpoint? Again, that's just a sort of naive question about the process of the law. But, I mean, if it's just going to get overturned, why go there in the first place?
Well, in essence, you basically have a right to a jury trial in civil matters. So
is that Hogan's choice? That's Hogan's choice, you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. That's what I was kind of getting at.
Hogan certainly could have said, no, we can have a bench trial. No, we're perfectly happy with a judge deciding that. But from his perspective, you can certainly see why he would want a jury trial in this case.
Right. Absolutely. Now, another case that some people have compared it to, including mine, is the Erin Andrews case, where she was secretly filmed in her hotel room by a stalker, and that the front desk of the hotel gave out her room number and gave someone they, unbeknownst to them, was a stalker a room next to her. I haven't studied that case really in depth, but I am curious to know what you think are the similarities and differences, and do you think that her ruling, the ruling in her case of $50 million, influenced and inflated the number for Hogan?
I don't think the outcomes are related, but the law is certainly related, and that's where it gets interesting to kind of dig into Hogan's complaint.
Yeah.
Hogan is suing for 3 different privacy law violations, and the first is probably the one that is most like the Erin Andrews case. His first claim deals with what we call under the law the tort of intrusion, and intrusion is simply invading upon someone else's privacy, usually by electronic or mechanical means, in a place where they have a reasonable expectation of privacy. So Erin Andrews, alone in her hotel room, being videotaped in a space where she has a reasonable expectation of privacy, that's a good intrusion claim. I haven't looked at her claim, but I'm sure she alleged intrusion. Hogan, in this case, in a bedroom, not his bedroom, but in a bedroom where he felt like he had a reasonable expectation of privacy. That's where the similarities are in these intrusion claims. Now, I will say, in Gawker publisher Nick Denton's response this week, he alleged that Hogan may have known there was recording equipment in the bedroom, and if indeed that's true, and part of Denton's complaint in his response is that they weren't allowed to present this evidence to a jury. So maybe this is where an appellate court starts to look. Should they have been allowed to present this information? But if Hogan knew that there was recording equipment in the bedroom, totally negates his intrusion claim. So that would be something either an appellate court could look at from an... sure.
Let me ask, why does that...
I'm Rich Fan, host of The Deep Dive with Rich Fan, a weekly part of the PW Torch Daily Cast lineup of shows. Search PW Torch in Apple Podcasts or your podcast apps to subscribe. Every Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern, I dive in with a guest for an hour on anything in the world of wrestling, or wrestling related. Want to hear about the influence of historical figures like Big Cat Ernie Ladd? We got you. Want to hear about how crazy the Marine movies got? We are on it. No topic is too big or too small, so if you want to dive in with us, call in live or listen on demand and see the entire PW Torch Dailycast schedule at pwtorchdailycast.com.
If he knew he was being recorded, why can't you have something recorded in a private setting? He didn't sell tickets. He didn't announce it on a billboard. He wasn't selling the tape. He didn't sign a release. Isn't there an understanding that, yeah, we're going to record this, or I'm aware that you're recording it, but the understanding is this is still meant for only our eyes to just watch back. I don't want to get too into people's, desires of what to do with the tape, but why does having something privately recorded dramatically change the expectation that it would not then be published for all strangers to see?
Well, see, that's where his other privacy claims come into consideration. Intrusion is what we call just a tort of news gathering. The intrusive act happens when you do the recording. What happens after, where the recording follows later, is where the other privacy causes come into play. You talk a lot about signing off on things, and this is where I really started to listen to the Bruce Mitchell audio show, and I was like, you guys, when we start to talk about signing off and giving his permission, then we start to get into his right of publicity claim, and we put that under what we call the appropriation tort. And appropriation is simply the unauthorized use of someone's name or likeness without their permission. And on the surface, maybe there is an appropriation claim here, but we don't usually target appropriation against news entities. And I'll give you an example here. I've been reading the Torch like forever, since I could go online and use the internet. You don't have clearances to use WWE pictures for copyright reasons. I'm not obviously involved in your business decisions, but that's basically it, right?
Right. Oh, of course, yeah.
But you have commissioned or solicited artwork for some people, right?
Correct. Yep.
There's one that always sticks out in my mind. I think it's my favorite. You have like a painting or some type of artwork of Jeff Hardy, right?
Yep. Grant
really
Gould
colorful. It's my favorite.
Grant Gould and Travis Bevan are both great artists who have done work for us. Among others, Joseph Borzota, caricature artist going back to the 90s. So, yeah, and others. So, yeah, we've had a lot of good artists contribute.
So, when you use that Jeff Hardy picture, you're not worried about a copyright claim, but you're not necessarily using that picture with Jeff Hardy's permission. So, on the surface, that could be an appropriation claim, but you use that picture in connection with your Jeff Hardy news or the appearances or whatnot. In this case, Hogan is suing under appropriation, specifically his right of publicity, saying that, okay, you hurt my ability to make money off of my name or likeness. Now, in a traditional setting, we would see a successful right of publicity claim where say I came out with LeBron sneakers, and they're like cheap knockoffs, and I certainly didn't pay LeBron James for any kind of sponsorship rights, where I'm violating some celebrities, like I said, their ability to make money from their name or their likeness.
Or if we sold Jeff Hardy T-shirts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But in this case, it's not like Gawker is selling the sex tape. They're not physically selling DVD copies of the 30-minute sex tape they got. They're not even selling the 1 minute and 41-second edited video that they posted. They are a news gathering operation, whatever you think of their news values. So under that, appropriation claim, I think that, that is in essence kind of a phony claim. Where if Hogan is going to win on appeal, if it's going to be upheld, it's going to be upheld under his publication of private facts claim. And I think that's where you can start to think about this outrage of having a person's private, intimate moments being violated, having our personal moments be displayed for the internet. And a public facts claim is, in essence, someone brought notoriety, light, attention to private information that wasn't public anywhere else, and that the disclosure is offensive to a reasonable person. Again, this all sounds like places where Hogan is going to win, right? Because it certainly was published, and most people would agree having your private sexual moments being published is kind of disgusting. However, this is where we start to talk about newsworthiness. And in my estimation, I think, and even Bruce Mitchell agreed, I listened, he said it, there is news value here. And it's not a matter of whether we're disgusted with how Gawker approached it. It doesn't matter that they sensationalized it. It doesn't matter. There's simply, we kind of look at it from a binary perspective. Was it news or was it not news? And where we have a celebrity that has, that has done the reality television show, that has portrayed himself as something of a role model and a guy in the public eye, and he's talked about his sex life. If it's news that he's, doing these things with Heather Clem, then in essence, we don't judge how Gawker went about telling the news. So that's where, again, we have to get into this First Amendment debate on what is and what is not news. And on this case, I think I side with Gawker.
Hey guys, it's Mike McMahon from the All Elite After Show. Every week, Andrew Socek and I break down AEW on our free PW Torch podcast. We've been doing this show since 2016. That's right. We're on our 5th year. When we started the show back then, we were talking just Impact Wrestling, and we still talk about them from time to time as well. And over the years, we've branched out to also discuss MLW, and of course, the main event of our program, which is always the latest going on in AEW. Again, the show is called the All Elite After Show with me, Mike McMahon, and my partner, Andrew Socek. You can check us out as part of the PW Torch Daily Cast lineup. You can subscribe to our show and all of the Daily Cast shows just by searching PW Torch on any podcast app. And of course, you can listen ad-free with a PW Torch VIP membership.
What would too far be? Because I think the gut reaction that I had, and I think it relates to a lot of the public, is what is the newsworthiness of being so forthright? Why? I know they only, the Gawker founder, Nick Denton, has said, well, we only aired a minute or so of a whole 30 minutes. We could have, really embarrassed him. But still, they didn't digitize
the private parts, they kind of presented it in a snickering type of way. I understand that you get to editorialize about things that are newsworthy, and in this country, thankfully, there's a lot of protection for being snarky or being sarcastic or even kind of mean. Mean's maybe the wrong word for it, but not trying to be polite like you would at the dinner table about responding to public figures. But is there not a line that can be crossed of a news entity going further than would be necessary to cover the news aspect of the story? Why not have still shots and digitize certain aspects of it? Or does that not matter in the eyes of the law? It sounds like you're saying in the eyes of the law, established law, precedent, that really is not a concern. And that's where Nick Denton, the founder of Gawker, has from the beginning, even before this trial started, been pretty confident that no matter what happened with the jury's more emotional response to things, that the law was on his side.
Yeah, well, we've had tabloid journalism since nearly the beginning of the Republic, and it has always given a lot of, sort of the upright, morally correct citizens, readers among us, kind of a revulsion. But that doesn't mean that we don't read it. That doesn't mean that it's not protected under the First Amendment. So if you're wondering about a situation where we have crossed the line, well, first of all, I look at this from kind of a spectrum of plausibility. I can create a very plausible argument as to why I think the Hulk Hogan, the edited version of the Hulk Hogan sex tape is newsworthy, and how I present it, the way I presented it, my commentary on the news, I can make an intelligent argument. The argument of posting the entire 30-minute sex tape, it's probably harder to make. As far as, again, why is it news? If I just plucked some random person off the street, hacked their phone, put their sex tape online, I mean, there's no argument there, because if it's just if Gawker had chosen out of 330 million people, if they had chosen one person at random, hacked their phone, and put up all of their selfies, that is probably a good cause of action for publication of private facts, being just because there's no argument there for newsworthiness. But here you can make a straightforward argument that Hogan's his role model. There's this connection between these private affairs and his public life, and and how it paints this picture of a guy that told us to say our prayers and eat our vitamins, and behind closed doors was doing not the opposite, but certainly not what we would expect, or maybe over the years.
Isn't your governor in a little trouble this week for something related?
Robert Bentley. We had such a wonderful day yesterday. It was really a great time to be alive on Twitter. All the memes. But yeah, you can certainly see some similarities there. But he had a recording that a family member had made in order to kind of pressure him to stop this affair, and the family member leaked the recording. It was certainly embarrassing. It was certainly private information. But this is a sitting governor of one of the states in the United States, and there's some question whether he misused state funds or committed other illegal acts. This is newsworthy, certainly. Where it gets to Hulk Hogan, the argument is harder, but it's similar when it comes to a private facts claim. And then again, the argument is entirely impossible when you just have a random private Joe who is not newsworthy for any particular reason.
Have you heard of a public figure talking about the manufactured persona of, in this case, Hulk Hogan versus the real-life Terry Bollea? I've been in person in a courtroom watching Hulk Hogan testify at the Vince McMahon steroid trial back in the early 90s, and he's good. I mean, he's a good witness for changing the course of a case. The prosecutors called him as a witness, and he blindsided them with testimony they were not expecting. I forever will remember looking at the prosecutors as Hogan started testifying in ways that helped Vince McMahon in his case and gave answers the prosecutors were not expecting. And I'll never forget the looks on their faces. And they were trying to hide it because that's, of course, what they're instructed to do. It's not like television dramas where, they're letting every emotion show for dramatization. But Hogan was good. And when I interviewed him about 15 years ago about this, Hulk outright said, Wade, I think my testimony kept Vince McMahon out of prison. What do you think? And I couldn't disagree with him. He's the charisma that helps sell out buildings and make him Hulk Hogan is a charisma that he can utilize in a way that a lot of people wouldn't be able to on a witness stand or testifying in this case for his own lawsuit. But that's and he had. I agree that there's a difference between Hulk Hogan and Terry Bollea. I've often said about Hogan that I think Terry Bollea was a person and that Hulk Hogan was somebody that Terry Bollea unabashedly promoted in exaggerated ways, oftentimes knowing that media members interviewing him wouldn't fact check and didn't care and were just enamored with the presence of Hulk Hogan. And he didn't put a value on telling the truth in interviews because his primary job was to promote the Hulk Hogan brand. So I would be hypocritical to not say I think that they are two different people. I think Hulk Hogan, the public figure, and Terry Bollea are different. But in a legal sense, I had never thought that would be it seems like the crux of the attempt to influence the jury to see his way on this. How important do you think that was? And is there any other precedent you know of a public figure saying, well, that persona I put out there is different than the private person, and the private person should be protected?
This might be a real first when it comes to celebrities in the law. This argument that, okay, I play this character, although I have portrayed this character outside of the fictional setting as being who I really am. So I think you might have mentioned in the audio before, or somebody did, that there are basically like three Hulk Hogans. There's the Hulk Hogan in the ring on WWE television. There's the Hulk Hogan on the Howard Stern show, and then there's the Terry Bollea. I'm not sure if the law really parses that distinction. I think you might, if you were looking for an analog, maybe you might say, in some instances, when we have public officials, when we have elected officials, we look at things involving their public acts, like what they do in office. We view them differently. We allow for greater criticism. We make it easier to bring libel cases. We make it more difficult to bring libel cases where their public acts are concerned. However, when we have their private lives, we make it more difficult to bring those libel cases. Just going back to the Bentley example, if we could contrive a factual scenario where he had some type of sexual relationship that was in some way totally not connected to either his fitness for office or his acts in office, then maybe we would say, well, that's private. We have to treat that different for purposes of libel. But certainly, I think it worked for the jury. I think you're right. He was able to charm them. And as Denton wrote in his response, a lot of this was about having a Florida state jury sort of sit in judgment of the big bad guys from New York. And it's interesting that I just talked about libel. One of the biggest libel cases in American law, New York Times versus Sullivan, arose from Alabama, and it was in the civil rights movement. The stakes were very much lower, they're very much higher as compared to Hogan. But the setup is similar. We had the New York Times being hauled in front of an Alabama jury, as I said, in the height of the civil rights movement, where you had people who were not inclined to rule for the New York Times at all, being the